pastor. You know anybody downtown that could help out with this church block party we're going to have?
Oh, well, let me think here a minute. We got Skeeter down to the roller rink.
Well, and there's Jim Bob at Pump and Go.
Well, we got Larry and Linda over to the bear stand.
Ginger at the Whiz.
Well, there's Kirby. He's down at the Mighty Scoop.
And Gina at the Snippety Snip.
Man, is there anybody you guys don't know?
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Rural Pastors Talk, a podcast highlighting the advancement of Christ's kingdom in rural places, just like the town you live in. The rural church is not the baby pool we splash around in before moving on to bigger opportunities. It's not the place we're confined until we can take off those training wheels. And it is not God's penalty box as a punishment for breaking the rules. No, Jesus died for his people. And as long as Christ's people live in rural places, a vibrant, healthy, multiplying presence of his church will be there too. Well, hello, my name is TJ Freeman, and I am a rural pastor, and I have the honor of serving at Christ Church, Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, and I am joined today by some dudes.
Hey, my name's Joe. I am a rural pastor as well. I serve at Christ Church as well in Wellsboro.
What's going on, guys? Josh MacClaren. I, too, am a rural pastor, and I serve at Christ Church, church plant in Mansfield.
Mm-hmm. How long is it a church plant for?
2.5 years.
All right, when does it become a church?
That's a great question that we could dive theologically into
Yeah.
multiple ways.
I
You're
just
going
want-
on sabbatical, so we won't worry about that.
Just wanted to share with you that Josh is the ultimate rural pastor. He killed him a bar when he was only 3.
Yeah, that's right.
With my bare hands.
Bar hands.
Yeah.
Hey, on this episode of Rural Pastors Talk, we discuss the church as a reverse witness in the community, why building good relationships in your community actually matters, no matter how big or how small your community is, a book recommendation about loving your community, and a quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer to put in your mind coffer. All right. So question. Name a time that you have seen the church work as a reverse witness. Should I define reverse witness?
Yes. Tell
We
me
can give a very blatant classic example, too.
Okay. So a church is supposed to have a positive witness in the community. Making Christ known in your town is the job of the church. That's why it's there. If you have a reverse witness, that means you're making something other than Christ known. You're having a negative impact on the community, not because they're tripping over the gospel, because they're tripping over something weird or wrong that your church is doing. So can you think of a time that you've seen a church, unnamed, unless you want to name it, and take all the flack? Yeah.
Well, I'll name the national one. Like, anytime someone hears about Westboro Baptist Church, like, they're like, oh, that church, hates these kinds of people.
Yeah. And we get called Westboro Baptist
Because
Church
we
all
used
the
to be
time.
Wellsboro Bible Church.
That's right.
And people were like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, nothing.
Where's your picket signs?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, that's a great example of a reverse witness. I have one that hits much closer to home. Our church in Wellsboro had a reverse witness. When I moved to town, we had banners with a specific message plastered on the outside of our building. And when I would tell people, oh, I'm the new pastor at what was then called Independent Bible Church, which says a lot, doesn't it? Leave us alone. We're independent. At Independent Bible Church, they didn't care about the name. They were like, oh, you're the XYZ church because of the banners that were on the side of the church. They would always refer to the church by those banners. And those banners didn't communicate the gospel. They communicated a political position that was, I mean, we certainly stand by that political position, but it's not the thing we want to be known for. What about you?
I'm trying to be as non-confrontational or offensive as possible, but sometimes on the International Day of Prayer, when churches gather at public places in towns and are just really weird,
Yeah.
and people kind of come out to point and look and be like, look at those weirdos, that's kind of a reverse witness, I would think.
Yeah.
No matter how sincere you are, you just kind of got to look and be like, wow, are we being weird to the community that's out there? Rather than, I don't want to say that your goal when you're in the community is to be winsome, but it's to win people for sure.
So is it wrong for Christians to be weird?
No, not at all. I don't think that Christians should be like,
Well, I am one, so.
yeah, we're all
What,
weirdos
Christian
to
or
one,
weird?
to one extent. How specific and detailed do you want me to get with my example?
That's up to you, but I would say like Mike White always says, and Mike White is a pastor at our church.
Christianity weird.
Keep Christianity weird.
When I mean weird, I mean like singing some songs really, really loud, but not doing it well.
Okay.
Or kind of making a very, very loud argument, but the argument, while it is good, it does not necessarily make logical sorts of sense. It's very
Nor
emotional.
does it highlight the most important thing.
Nor does it highlight the most
against,
important thing.
You know, you're not against praying in public. You're not against.
No, absolutely not.
But there can be distractions to that witness. Yeah.
And sometimes you can go back to like we got to get back to 1950s America.
Yeah.
And then that becomes the charge, which is a reverse witness, because that's not what we're trying to get back to.
When you really fulfill that weird stereotype of churches. And listen, we do need to keep Christianity weird, but not like goofy, silly, that doesn't make any sort of sense weird.
That's right. So yeah, we definitely are distinct from the world, but we don't have to be a bunch of oddballs in that sense. So I think you've said enough offensive stuff, Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Well, hey, our topic for today was the brainchild of our dear church planting friend, who someday might graduate to actually pastoring a church. He had this idea, so I'm going to let you talk about it, Josh. Tee up the ball.
Yeah, sure. One of the things when we prepared to plant, yes, Joe?
Get weird about it, dude.
Yeah.
One of the things. Okay. So this whole conversation started on Friday, talking to the president of our Chamber of Commerce about the 4th of July celebration. It's a big deal in our town, big parade, fireworks, you know, everything. And we were just talking about ways that our church could be involved. And she just said something that stuck out to me. She said, "You have been there for me to have my back, and I want to have yours. We have some things going on in our church that are pretty exciting. They're also a little daunting." And that was just really encouraging to me, because since we started planting 2.5 years ago, we have sought to be a witness to the community, that we want to love them and show them we love them, so that we would have inroads to have opportunities to share the gospel, to point people to the hope that we have in Christ, these types of things.
All right, let's pause.
Sure.
I think we can get into the issue a little bit.
Yep.
So when you first moved to town, you had an opportunity to get into a building.
Yep.
Got under contract. What happened?
It didn't go through. There were some
Community things.
Yeah, community things that just ended up not working out. The time frame didn't work out for the sellers. So,
namely, the borough wouldn't let you there.
You're being really bold right now, TJ.
Well, I think it's going to be useful for our listeners.
Okay.
I'm not trying to just be bold for boldness' sake.
Sure.
And they weren't trying to be mean.
No, it's just
They're just following the ordinance.
Yep.
And the ordinance didn't allow for a church in a place that probably it should have legally. But they're not trying to be illegal or whatever.
Yep.
That's just the way it is. And so now, a couple of years later, what's going on?
We have the opportunity to get a building again.
But the zoning
is still not correct. It's still not
favorable.
Correct. It's not favorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in a small town, this kind of stuff can happen.
Sure.
And it's not just going to happen to us. This could happen to a lot of people.
Right.
So your relationship then with the chamber is a highlight in that, going, hey, there's some positive things that the church has been in this community, and we want to be supportive of the church. Right. I think that's a good thing.
Let's simplify this.
Yeah,
we'll go back to what I said earlier. Community and civic involvement gets us two things. And these two are very good things.
What are they?
One of the things is you can get what you want, right? It opens up doors in the community for you to be able to get a church, change zoning. And the second thing is it opens up doors for you to be able to share the gospel with them, right? So that you can move the church forward, get things that you need or want by building relationships, building trusts, and they don't think that you're weird or out to get them or against them. You're relating to one another, building those relationships so that you can get what you need or want when it comes to those sorts of things.
In primary motivation in that is to love them like Christ loves us.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're not trying to be mercenary about this sort of thing. Right. Hey, I don't know if check this wisdom. This is one of the things I always tell my kids. There are 3 people in this world that you absolutely must be kind to: the lunch lady, the administrative assistant, and the bank teller. Why do you need to be nice to those people particularly? because Jesus loves them too, right? And you want to be able to share the gospel with them, but that makes life easier when you have relationships with those sorts of people.
Reminds me of something the Apostle Paul said.
What did the Apostle Paul say?
Well, when he's talking about prayer, what does he say? I didn't copy paste it. But 1 Timothy, he says that we should be praying for all kinds of people, right? Pray for men who are in position, pray for those who aren't, so that we can live quiet and peaceful life. Which is interesting because we don't always think about living quiet and peaceful lives as Christians. However, that's not a bad thing to do as long as we're seeking to be faithful with the opportunities and things the Lord's given us.
Yeah, so let's just process a little bit together here out loud in front of everyone that's watching. Is it right to want to get things from the community? So that's kind of one thing you're arguing, Joe, is like...
I think one of the things that we can talk about is to do this in a godly sort of a way is to be able to leverage relationships.
Yeah.
And I don't think that
Which
there's anything...
people in the community do anyway.
I would love, throughout the Gospels, throughout Acts, to go through and do a study of the different relationships that Peter, that Paul, that Christ himself, that the disciples leveraged to be able to accomplish something for the gospel.
Right. Now, what are some dangers there?
You do not want to take advantage of anybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we said, we want to do this in a very godly sort of a way. You do not want to do this with guile. You do not want to do this with dishonesty.
Yep.
You just want to be honest, pure, and really let the love of Christ shine through in all these sorts of situations so that they don't think that you're a big, mean, weird monster out to get them and not pay them taxes.
Well, and then I think the opposite is true too, of like, we preach the reality of sinners condemned before God who are going to experience his wrath. And I think that does something in my mind when I look at the community, and I think all of these people are my enemies because they're not Christians. And that's just not that's just not true. They're humans made in God's image, fallen, who need the gospel. And I need to look at them as image bearers, I think, first, before I think about their eternal state. Like, no, God made them, and he calls me to love them, not see them as enemies, because my real enemy, even if he may, right, use the influence of men, my real enemy is Satan. Yeah, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against rulers and authorities, Paul says in Ephesians 6. So I even need to just, I think, change my own thinking.
This is not even two sides of the same coin. This is like the same side of the coin.
Right.
Because when we build those relationships, we're able to be Christ to them, show them, and become involved in community with them. And then that opens up doors for the gospel. Right. I really believe that.
Yeah. Josh, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's a good thing for all of our listeners to check their heart on, is how do you view your community?
Yeah.
And it is easy when you face opposition. This is part of why I wanted to tease out that opposition you faced a little bit, because you can develop an us versus them mindset very easily. And at different times I've felt that myself. And we're meant to have compassion on the community. And I think that probably is like the biggest rock we could throw into the pond here, is to say, do you have compassion enough on the community that Christ has placed your church in to have the kind of witness there that actually brings people toward Christ?
Exactly. We're going to use your example of the banners with that political statement and slogan on there. You had to rehabilitate the image of the church to a true and right and good, godly sort of an image. I was just talking with pastors this last week. Small town, and there was a church in that town, and the pastor committed some egregious sins. And that church then became known for what that pastor did.
Yeah. Great example of a reverse witness.
That was a horrible, horrible reverse witness. Mm-hmm. And so then that was the new pastor's, one of his primary jobs was, this is the worldly way of saying it, rehabilitating that image, but actually to be able to, this is the truth. This is what we really were. That other guy, terrible, awful sin. That's not what we stand for. This is what we stand for, and this is what we are. The love of Christ, an open door to the gospel message. Hey, we are going to love our neighbors. We're even going to love our enemies. And so that's how you really show, I think that is how we, I'm running out of words. Somebody jump in with something profound to say. That is really what our mission is, to be able to do that way.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm not inclined to talk about a pastor as a missionary.
Oh, yeah. This is a good conversation.
But there is a sense in which the church exists in a community as a demonstration of something.
Talk about geographical responsibility.
Yeah. Okay. Like COA.
Yeah.
All right. So God puts the church in a place to make his glory known. He wants to make his glory known in that place, and he wants to make his glory known from that place. That's the purpose of a church anywhere, whether you're in Zimbabwe or Wellsboro or Antrim or whatever, anywhere in the world. And the church has a responsibility to look at the geography it's in and say, how much of this geography should the Christians in our church be responsible for trying to reach? And if, just again, if the Lord would help us to do it, what would it look like for us to reach this subset of the people? And no church can do that by themselves. So starting to partner with other churches in the region to be able to do that, and then planting in places where there's not somebody existing that you could partner with already to see the entire geography owned for the gospel. What that means, though, is you have to think about the lostness of that place. And you're going, my church is here to win the lost people in this town for the sake of the gospel. And I'm not arguing that the church exists for the lost. The church is the body of Christ. It primarily exists to strengthen believers, but those believers are meant to go back out into that community to make Christ.
What is the first thing that you told Josh to do when he went to Mansfield, or CJ, who is our production engineer behind the scenes, if he were to go plant in another place, what would be the first thing that you would tell them to go do as they were praying and thinking about going and planting a church?
Wear deodorant and carry gum. After that, I don't know. Do you remember?
Yeah, go to the coffee shop.
Oh, yeah.
Become involved in the community. Get to know people in the community. Begin to feel a weight of responsibility for that community. Begin to love that community and those people. Have a love for that particular place that the Lord might be calling you to do.
That's
Yeah,
right.
because I think, we planted and we had the opportunity to purchase that first building within 4 months. And people still look at you with a side eye and you're like, this is kind of weird. This random group that just came here, they're going to purchase some of our property, these types of things.
And you went bearing the name of a church from another town.
Right. So
even though we
in
took the
small
town name
right,
out of it. Yeah.
Small town vibes with a franchise type, the potential to see it like that.
That's something we learned as we plant.
Yeah.
We don't want to send our name and our logo and all that kind of stuff.
So now 2.5 years removed, we've had opportunities to be involved in community events, to offer free things for like children activities and free hot dogs, all this type of stuff. Like we've done things in the community now. We've moved a bunch of times and people know that, but the fact that we have chosen not to just disband, I feel like we've communicated something to the community now where we have an opportunity to purchase a building that could be restored to a shining, light.
Yeah.
And so there is that aspect of being able to effectually move in there practically with a church. You're building relationships within the community to accomplish that fact. The other side of this is, let me share a quick story. So downtown in our town where we were at, my wife and I were going out for dinner. We were going to take in a movie afterwards. We were walking downtown, and out stumbling from the bar was this redneck dude. And it was not super late, but he was drunk with a capital D. And he was mad with a capital M. And I don't know what the deal was, but he looked at me and was ready to fight and throw down right now. And I'm like, what the heck? And my first instance was, well, let's bring it on. But
My wife's here. I will defend
I was
her.
like,
Grumpy Joe came out. Yeah.
Grumpy Joe was right there.
Yeah.
But then he stumbled and he totally forgot about me and he crossed the street. And I got to thinking to myself, who in the world is going to reach that dude?
Yeah, that's right.
Who's going to be able to get to him? And I wanted to get to him with a big right hand, but he'd probably thump me. He was way younger and way bigger. But still, that fact remains, who is going to be there for that person and for those people? And you're not going to be able to be there for him unless you start putting down roots in that community to be able to eventually get to him.
That's right. So Christ has people in every community. I really believe that's true. And it's the job of the church to go and win them, because those are the means that Christ has left in place. So God can, part the heavens and, just drop somebody to their knees and save their souls. And praise the Lord for every testimony like that. But he typically uses ambassadors, people that he sends. And I'm just using Pauline language to say we are ambassadors for Christ. Mm-hmm. And we are meant to fulfill the Great Commission in part by going out to lost people, telling them about their lostness and how to follow Christ. And then when they profess faith, that's when that part that we key in on is baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
And for some people, that's going to be a stumbling block, and they're not going to like you. And so I think the crux, or one point of the conversation that we're having, is how to get by those people that we're a stumbling block to.
Yeah,
there's part of that too.
Yeah.
And that's going to take some wisdom, something about serpents and doves.
And well-timed, since there's a dove trying to get into the window right now. So I'm just trying to think through various rural contexts. You're going to think about this problem of the church relating to the community differently in a rural context. Right. Because in a city, you may drive by 20 churches and you're not really thinking about them. One might have a beautiful building, whatever. People go tour it. In a small town, there might just be that one church or two churches. And the witness of that church, meaning the reputation of that church in the community, is going to be something that everybody knows. Yep. And for a generation or two, they might just write you off if you've done a poor job of relating to the community. If you're new in the community, Josh, it might take more than 2.5 years to win the community.
Yeah, of course.
And you might be a church plant for a really long time in the minds of the people there. So this matters because of the scale of things. People don't have as many churches in their minds. So when they think of your church, they think something, and that something has to do with what they think about God. And it is the responsibility, particularly of the small rural church, to make sure you're investing in the community in a way that's not compromising, and that is truly loving. So I want to come full circle to this concept because I don't want to leave any confusion. Going back to getting what you want out of the people, I understand it. Help us just, for those people who are listening, Joe, going, that just still sounds a little self-serving to me. Help us over that hump.
What you're doing is you're actually displaying the truth rather than what they think you are about. Does that make sense?
Say more.
So when you come into a community, they might hear a church or a church plant, and they have got really bad taste in their mouths from previous churches, church plants, pastors, Christians. They're not going to go out of their way to do anything for you whatsoever. But when they see from you that you genuinely do care about them as a person and the community itself, they're going to see that your values actually do probably align with their values. This is their perspective. And they're going to say, okay, we can partner together. Now, what they might not necessarily understand is that your values, while they do parallel with theirs, yours are much more eternal in perspective. But you're going to be able to build that bridge in your community because you care for those people, legitimately care for them. You're not just using fake empathy to get what you want, but you actually do care for the community and the people, high station, low station. And you actually care for those people that you are trying to work with, those civic leaders in your community, whether they are somebody that owns a barbershop who's got ties and connections with everybody. You go in there, I really do care for you. I really do enjoy you. Tell me about your day. I'm really, really interested. Oh, let me tell you about my day, how that I did. And that's going to open up all sorts of doors. So we're not leveraging something fake. What we're doing is we're actually leveraging the truth of how we're supposed to love our neighbors and even our enemies. And I do think that will open up doors in your community for you to be able to advance the mission.
So I know you weren't saying this because I know you. Tim Madden, to go way back to somebody who used to
way back in the day,
always be our kind of foil for the angry guy listening. So Tim, if you're listening, we're glad you're still out there.
I feel like he'd like this episode.
Maybe. And so, Joe, if Tim Madden writes in and says, I feel like you guys were telling us to kiss butt, and manipulate the bank teller and the lunch lady and whatever, how would you answer him?
I legitimately like the bank teller.
There you go.
I was in the bank the other day, and I intentionally try to form relationships. Christy, if you're out there listening, I care for you. Like, she is one of the bank managers down there, and I intentionally try to build my relationships with her because I know I'm going to meet with her. I know that she is actually does care for me, and I care for her. So when we go down there, I don't just talk about banking. I talk about life. I talk about, hey, how are you today? Or I could use Mike. He's a guy that's down there as a bank teller too. I'd tell you all about Mike. Mike was a tanker. He was a soldier. He was deployed. He's got a couple kids. He loves to go fishing. I like Mike. It took me a couple different times to talk with Mike, interact with Mike, but now Mike genuinely loves me too. I don't know, he doesn't love me. He likes me. I could tell you about Eve. She's another bank teller down there. She just got a promotion. You see what I'm talking about? Like, I legitimately know those people down there at that bank. That's an opportunity for me to be able to go and build relationships with the people that are in there.
And we're not, and I don't think we're saying that you steward the relationship so that you like build some glorious campus of a church that, like, I'm actually encouraging you to go sacrifice your resources.
Yeah.
Like, go have a free block party. You know, go to the coffee shop and buy lunch every time you go because it blesses the local business owner. Like, sacrifice your resources to show that you actually care about the people there and you're not wanting to just gain from them.
And then when you have that relationship with them, you don't feel stupid, silly, or out of bounds when you say, hey, can you do this for me?
Yeah.
Like, can you make this happen?
We really want a building that will bless the community. Like, can you help me?
Yeah.
You know, gain influence or encourage or, you know.
Yeah. So what I take you to be saying is think about the weight of relational currency in a small town.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. And it matters differently from, like, when I lived in Southwest Florida, those relationships weren't even a possibility in most cases.
Too affluent, right?
Yeah. To know the town leaders in any way, they would have just wondered who the little peon is that's renting a school to try to do church. Well,
let me just share with you, like, I'll use Christy's name again. She's got my cell phone number because she calls me up and she goes out of her way sometimes. She's like, hey, probably ought to do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm there. But I also know that Christy will call me up in a pastoral responsibility if she ever needs to too.
Sure. Yeah.
So that relational currency, man. And we legitimately care for one another.
Yeah. We had a dear brother recently tell us about how he was like the pastor of his community at the county fair. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
That's
said,
right.
I just sat there for 8 hours a day and I ate the food and I just talked to the community.
He actually takes off work at the church to go be pastorally available at the
He doesn't
fair.
sit at a booth. He just
right.
is there.
Yep.
And I don't think that that's necessarily like a missionary. That's pastoral.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. So, and, you know, again, like, yeah, I think we've
beat it up.
We beat it up. Yeah. I was going to go down another little trail.
I did. I teed that one up for you, but
did.
you didn't take it.
Yep. Uh-oh. We got a problem. I hear that SOS. We're sending it out. Josh?
Yo.
What does that mean?
Someone help me. First, subscribe if you're not already. This content's been helpful for you and you want to keep up to date with new releases from Rural Pastors Talk or our sister podcast, Back to Rurality.
I thought you were going to say sister pastors.
Yeah,
sister
nice.
podcast.
Pastrixes.
You should subscribe. Thank you.
Yep. Or you could, or in addition to that,
offer a review.
Yep.
I think you gave not an ultimatum.
I encouraged.
You encouraged last week by saying if you give a full written review, then you'd send them a T-shirt.
I will. Yeah, that's right.
I don't think we've received anything.
Oh, man. Come on.
Well, maybe that hasn't released yet, though.
Have you checked? Actually, I think you're right. That podcast
Yeah, I just don't think it's
yet.
not released yet.
Yep.
Spoiler.
So hopefully that happens.
Catch up.
And lastly,
share. This has been helpful for you. You said, who's going to share this podcast? Why was it? Oh, never mind. Share the podcast for a little bit of backyard baseball. Anyway, is that saying? No, it's not. I'm going to save me.
Move along.
Yep.
Please share. Thanks.
Yeah, that's right. And now that the SOS has been issued, we can move on to
Stuff.
Rural
Pastors.
Can use.
Reviews.
All right. And we have something special for you today. This is a book by Stephen Viars. It is called Loving Your Community, published by Baker Books. It is from a dear brother who he has a long history of providing free biblical counseling to the community through his church. And he talks in this book about what he calls proven practices for community-based outreach ministry. And it is just full of thoughts about how you can get plugged into your community in a way that carries the gospel. I think the danger and why this topic sometimes makes me squirm a little bit is we can easily get into pragmatics and you start putting stuff in your annual report like we served 400 hot dogs this year as a celebration, which isn't even, you do that as a vehicle to get you toward relational equity, to get you toward the gospel. So it's never about the hot dogs. Anyway, he goes through here some ideas on a biblical foundation of community-based ministry, loving in the name of Christ, meeting your community's pressing needs, caring for the welfare of your community. And then he adds in the practice of community-based ministry. So a biblical foundation for it, then the practice. Starts with biblical counseling. It moves to opening your facilities. We just had a fascinating discussion about this in our elders meeting this last week. What does it mean for us to open our facilities and use those to serve our neighbors? Some instructional classes. How can you leverage some of the teaching that people will be looking for as ways to share the gospel in your town? Restructured ministry. So thinking about your ministry in terms of not just how does this make Christians, I want to be careful again because I'm not trying to downplay the joy and the necessity and the primary purpose of us gathering to help encourage and strengthen each other in the word. But how can we also make that an opportunity for lost people to be brought into our building for us to serve them through our ministries? Outreach events, restored neighborhoods. We tend to think in rural places that restored neighborhoods are a city problem, a city thing. But where we just planted a church in Antrim, Pennsylvania, it's a really struggling community. And they've been very encouraged by the fact that the church is open. After 23 years of sitting empty, to see that church being used again was a beautiful, awesome thing that then got people from the community telling us, hey, you're bringing the community back together in a way that matters to us. So restoring neighborhoods, not for the sake of, a better neighborhood, but
I think for the glory of God.
Yeah, for the glory of God.
Yeah.
That's right. Community centers, something to think about, interact with, contextualize for rural, and then they have residential treatment programs that they do at their church. So super helpful book to just think about how to serve your community well from a biblical perspective. Here's what you have to do, though, rural pastor. You have to contextualize resources like this because this is written from a guy in Lafayette, Indiana, much bigger place than where you live. It would not land on any rural road maps. So you have the job of thinking, all right, how do I take what I've read here and not just be like, oh, that'll never work, and apply it in a way that actually suits your rural community's context. Anything else to say about that?
I was just thinking about how exciting it would be to help revitalize the community as a church. That would just be absolutely glorious. The doors that it would open for the gospel.
So something we've thought about is, and if anybody from Antrim's listening, you can shoot this down if you don't like it, but what would it look like to do a parade in the town? Man. They used to have parades down their main street. They've not had that for years.
To be able to be at the forefront of that as a church and just start setting a gospel culture in something like that, you would doors would open up all over the place for the glory of God.
And again, you got to be so careful because it's not about the parade.
Right.
And the moment it becomes about the parade, you should never, ever do it.
Yep.
But if it's about leveraging the parade for the sake of loving that community and having opportunities to point them to Christ, then we can talk about that. So again, this is contextualizing. And I love, I'm a 9 marks guy. I love all that kind of stuff. Sometimes when I read some of those books, it makes me feel like I shouldn't be thinking about stuff like, should we do the parade in the community? And I think taking those biblical principles, and by the way, they probably don't mean to communicate that. That's just how I perceive it when I read it. We can think about ways that we can serve and love our community and still be really faithful to a
Ambassadors.
church first, Christ-centered, well, Christ first, church-centered, ambassador kind of a role. And what does that look like? So just encourage you to think about that, rural pastor. And lastly, Josh, I think you, since you came up with this topic, should be the one who gets to read the Bonhoeffer quote.
Honored. The church is the church only when it exists for others, not dominating, but helping and serving. It must tell men of every calling what it means to live for Christ, to exist for others. Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
There you go. All right, before we wrap this up, I want to say thank you to CJ, who, if we had a real camera operator, the camera would point over to him right now. He's been over here doing our sound engineering this whole time. The last few episodes, I've been trying to push all the buttons and talk meaningfully at the same time. It's not even humanly possible. So, CJ, thanks.
Woo.
Yep, we appreciate you, brother. And with that, we are signing off.
Adios.
Raise your Ebenezer.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of Rural Pastors Talk. We are honored to be able to talk about the church in rural places together with you. This is a ministry of the Brainerd Institute for Rural Ministry. For more information on rural church, head on over to brainerdinstitute.com. And now you can say,
Raise your Ebenezer.